Welcome to Shorty SuperCoach. How you going? We are doing another versus series today. Going to take a look at Heeney, Butters, and Goey. Bit of a forward line mid-price debate. Not even mid-price, just potential take the next game or take their game to the next level. So I'm interested to chat about them. I'll also touch on Trelaw and Thomas later in the video, just quickly. But I think of those five that, these are the guys I want to sort of focus on. If you'd like to ask me a few questions live, feel free to join me on Wednesday, little Q&A from 8 o'clock. I'd normally do a separate video to sort of let people know, but this will be a regular time slot, Wednesday, 8 o'clock. So hopefully just trying to give a few shout outs and people can sort of get to know that if they're interested, that's when it's on each and every week. So just wanted to discuss these guys one by one. And we'll start with the most expensive, Jordan De Goey. I'll just raise a few points for and against, and at the end give a bit of a rank. So I'd love to know how many of these players are in your side at the moment. The percentage reflects that, they're relatively popular, so I'll be quite interested to hear. Feel free to let me know any other players you'd like to go head-to-head in a bit of a versus series, and I'll hopefully take a look at them soon enough. But let's start with Jordan De Goey, 463k. He's available as a mid-forward and currently in 13% of sides. Now, he's been in the headlines for all the wrong reasons, as we well know. But prior to that, all the headlines were him about fitness in America, tearing it up, ready to continue on what was a massive second half of the year. Obviously, things have gone a little south and a few more negative headlines for Jordan, but he has, from a SuperCoach perspective, been a tease over the journey. Since his second year, where he, showed that he was a big talent, he's averaged 75, 79, 88, 87, 81, last year 85.2. He's been the perennial going to be a midfielder one day sort of guy. He's 25 now, so we've been waiting a while. Last year in the back half of the year, we finally saw what we'd all been waiting for. Now, we did see some big bags of goals early in the year, but he wasn't the player we had hoped for. He wasn't that midfield guy that we've been promised all the time. And in the end, he ended up getting moved to almost that deep forward that he'd been playing for years. Kicked a bag against North and that type of thing, but it wasn't the De Goey that we really felt he could be and what Collingwood probably needed him to be. But from rounds 13 to 23, he averaged 110. Now, that's enormous. Start of the year, many of you know, Shorty thought it was a good idea to go with him, one of the absolute selections that killed me last year. But 69, 99, I think that was against North, kicked like 4, still couldn't crack the ton. 51, 48, at that stage I'm thinking, well, this is an absolute fucking howler. And just to top it off, gets knocked the fuck out, scores 4. I can't remember what happened, but I think it was against the West Coast, wasn't it? Tim Kelly, bang, right in the chin or something, right in the jaw. Misses a week, comes back, scores 52. Oh boy. It was a good year. But we finally saw what he could do in the second half of the year. So surely we are set to see more of the second half of the year De Goey, at least from a position point of view. He found his groove. He found his mojo. Sidebottom playing in there less. Pendlebury playing in there less. You really got a young midfield surrounded by Crisp, Adams, and probably De Goey. They're probably the main dudes in there as well as some youngsters. So how could you take a guy out of the midfield that was playing so damn well? You'd find it pretty unlikely. There is always that little bit of nervousness about Jordan De Goey and selecting him because he's let us down so many times, or he's looked like he's been on this trajectory before. We saw his best stint of midfield time in the last 9 games of last year. So if you think he can get that, then that should give you a bit of confidence. Now, Isaac Heeney, again, a man that I've pumped up many, many times. He's a favourite of mine. I do love the way he goes about it. But let's take the Isaac Heeney glasses off, remove the bias, and talk some facts. 5, well, that's not a fact. He's 454,000. He's only a forward at the moment, 15% of size, but don't worry about these positions. I'm sure they will add midfield status to their names, just like Zach Butters will as well. Now the talk again. Isaac Heeney's going to play midfield time. He's been training with the midfield group. Wow. We've heard that before, John. The biggest thing with Heeney is it's simple, but it's so complicated. I'll read you some numbers. When he plays midfield, he scores. Even just a healthy split, because he is damaging in the forward half. But surely the time has come where Sydney don't need him there as much. If you're interested in Heeney, barrack for your life that Franklin doesn't get injured, because when Franklin goes down, Heeney just seems to be that, key position guy. But they've also got McDonald and a couple other tools that surely can have a say up there. I think McLean, and is Reed still kicking around? Who even knows? But 2017, I'll read some percentages out to you. Played 65% time in midfield, averaged 98. 2018, averaged 110 up until round 13, gets injured, and then wasn't the same for the back half of the year. And then we've seen him sort of just craft his way into more of a forward type of player with bursts in the midfield. But last year, we actually saw his two highest scores, 128 and 135, were the only two times that he attended, or not even attended, he played 50% or more in the midfield. That's from Champion Data. Just a representation of when guys are playing and where. So what does all that mean? When he does play midfield, he's a bloody good player. That's what he was as a junior. And it's just, in a way, he's sort of suffered. Well, maybe we've suffered. Maybe he's loved playing forward. I don't know. I'm sure he wants to get in that midfield. But as SuperCoach fans, we have suffered by how good he is in the forward line. Can take a mark, can kick a goal. I truly believe he will play a lot more mid-time. But things do change. Injuries, the way teams set up, form, and it can all fluctuate. But Longmire has come out and said it'll be a 70% midfield, 30% forward split. That would be a dream. I could easily see him averaging 95 plus. A downside to Heeney, and perhaps, the biggest, is he's missed a lot of games over the journey. He's a guy that looks like a Greek god, but seems to break down a lot. So that is a concern as well. I think a lot of people would have been burnt last year when he was cheap as chips and then continued to just miss games and cop injuries and just was a roller coaster at times last year. But I do believe if he gets genuine midfield time, then he is something we should seriously consider. And finally, Zach Butters, 443k. He's the youngest of the lot, but the most popular of the lot. 22% of sides. And we saw it coming. 87.7 in 2020 he averaged. And I must admit, I got this well wrong last year. I wasn't too sure what we would see from him in 2021. I didn't know if he was ready to really step into the midfield and take his average well up. And he did until things started to go wrong. Round one, and I've referenced these before, but round one, 16 touches, couple of goals, 98 points. That sort of highlights what a damaging player he can be. Only the 16 touches, but can nearly get you a ton. Those guys, it just shows their efficiency. Round two, he tore the Bombers apart. 36 touches, 163. Round three was a quieter one, 55. And round four is the big one, 96 points. But that was in 57% time on ground from the 18 touches. He was best on ground to that point, and that was almost the top end of his season. It was downhill from there, and that leaves him well underpriced for what he's capable of. He returned, obviously, throughout the year to play plenty of matches, but didn't seem to be the Butters that started the year. Maybe he couldn't quite get his fitness back to the levels it was of pre-season with that interruption, or it just did seem like Port Adelaide had, moved on and found other ways to win games, and he was involved in the midfield at times. Other times he was just better spent as more of a forward, but all the talk is that he is looking as good as ever in training, and I know we hear that all the time, but he's looking like he's ready to really put himself on the map as a midfielder. So I think he'll always be a guy that's creative up forward, but he's such a damaging player, and I think the more Port Adelaide get the ball in his hands, good things just come from it. So he's such an exciting prospect, as all three of these guys are. Now, I did say I would touch on Thomas and Treloar just quickly. then I will rank these guys. Treloar is in 13% of sides, and I'm just not interested at all, mainly because of these hammies and the injury concerns. And I don't love his position from a Supercoach point of view at the Dogs. He's a bit more outside. He's still probably going to average 90 plus. I don't really have too many doubts about that, but I'd be really, really surprised if he played 20 games. You know, I really would be. And I prefer all three of these guys that I just mentioned. So I'm not bagging Treloar out. I just can't trust his body. And Taron Thomas, 9% of teams. I really like this bloke. I'm a big rat for him. I just feel like maybe I don't want to commit to him just yet. I think one more year, he'll probably, he'll almost enter premium status, but there just is a little bit of a concern. He is quite young in a team that's going to still struggle to win games. Not that that's everything, but he's still learning his craft and developing more of that mix with the midfield group. And he's always seemed like a guy that will get there. We saw a mini breakout last year, but just a bit of a gut feel. I don't think I want to commit to him. Again, like Treloar, I'm not necessarily bagging him out or putting too much of a negative slant on it. I just prefer the other guys. So if I were to rate these players and rank them, I would have Butters at number 1, Heeney at number 2, Goey at number 3, Thomas at 4, and Treloar at 5. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to rank them 1 to 5 as well, or just let me know which guys are in your team at the moment. So it's quite interesting. I think if you can get these guys under 500k and you keep them all year because they're keepers, that is an amazing result. So it would be sensational if we got a few of these guys over the line. There might only be 1. There could be 4 that turn into premiums by the end of the year. If you don't start with them, we might be able to get them throughout the year as well. But I definitely think I'll start Butters and possibly one other. We'll just say I do want to pick Heeney because I love the bloke. But he's hurt me before, so I don't want to talk about pain on Valentine's Day. We'll just leave it at that, shorties. Anyway, but let's move on to nothing. We're wrapping the video up. Shorty got a little bit flustered there. But when will I be back? I'll be live on Wednesday. I'll try and get a video Tuesday, but if not, I'll be back soon enough anyway. We'll dive into the laptop, tell a bit of a story soon enough. So yeah, it's good stuff. Been loving your engagement in the comments and on Facebook. That's been awesome. So keep that going. And yeah, I'll chat to you guys soon. Cheers.